Teisha with Shalom TV's News Update. It's truly disappointing to the Jewish world that some Christian organizations continue to seem attracted to the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. The latest example comes today as the JTA reports that Canada's largest Protestant church stands ready to approve a boycott of products made in Israeli settlements. Members of the United Church of Canada's General Council on Wednesday affirmed a resolution supporting a boycott of goods produced in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. A final vote is scheduled for Friday, when the church's governing General Council can choose to accept or reject an overall motion that includes recommendations contained in a report on church policy on the Israel-Palestinian conflict. Church official Bruce Gregerson told the Post Media News the mind of the council is pretty clear, saying the main recommendations were approved by a fairly overwhelming vote. Gregerson says the proposal is not anti-Israel, saying the group is supportive of the Jewish state and its people, just not of the occupation and the settlements. The Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs expressed outrage at the development, saying Wednesday's decision was a radical shift in the United Church's policies and flies in the face of decades of constructive interfaith dialogue. President and CEO of the Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center for Holocaust Studies, Avi Ben-Lolo, said, "I don't know if church members truly understand how utterly offensive and imbalanced this proposal is, or whether a latent anti-Semitism within the church is slowly coming back to life." Israel's Deputy Foreign Minister Dani Ayalon praised the government of Kenya on Thursday for its efforts in stopping terror threats against Israeli and Jewish targets, including plans to assassinate Israel's ambassador in Kenya. Kenya's intelligence services revealed the plans of 2 Iranians they had arrested in June, including the assassination threat to Israel's ambassador to Kenya, Gil Haskell. One official said the Iranians are members of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps Quds Force, an elite and secretive unit. Ayalon is visiting Kenya as well as Uganda and Ethiopia, seeking support for Israel's position regarding Iran's nuclear threat and trying to convince African leaders not to take part in the Conference of Non-Aligned Nations at the end of the month in Tehran. And in our Election 2012 report, the Jerusalem Post reports that a poll commissioned by the Israel Democracy Institute and Tel Aviv University shows that Israeli Jews by a 2-to-1 ratio believe Republican hopeful Mitt Romney is more concerned about Israel's interests than President Obama. The monthly Peace Index poll was released Thursday and was conducted by the Dachaf Institute on August the 7th and 8th. It asked 516 Israeli Jews whether Obama or Romney assigns more importance to defending Israel's national interest. According to the poll, 40% of the respondents said Romney, 19% Obama, and 10% said both to the same extent. Another 25% didn't know, while 6% said neither. The poll was released a day after the National Jewish Democratic Council released a video of residents of the Israeli town of Sderot that has been bombarded by rocket fire from Gaza, praising President Obama, expressing their feelings that he is sympathetic to their problems and praising him for funding the Iron Dome missile defense system. And staying with election-related news, the Zionist Organization of America has called upon the Democratic National Convention Committee and Obama for America to rescind its invitation to former President Jimmy Carter to address the 2012 Democratic National Convention in Charlotte, North Carolina next month. The ZOA points to President Carter's decades-long hostility towards and defaming of Israel and advocacy of negotiations with Hamas, a terrorist organization that calls in its charter for the destruction of Israel and the global murder of Jews as evidence of the inappropriateness of the invitation. ZOA National Chairman of the Board, Dr. Michael Goldblatt, said the invitation to President Carter to address the Democratic National Convention is an insult to American Jews, Christian Zionists, and all Americans who care, as polls show them to do in large numbers, for Israel. And finally, the World Jewish Daily reports that terrorist organization Hezbollah has finished construction on a multi-million-dollar theme park, celebrating its supposed defeat of the, quote, Zionist enemy and spreading anti-Israel propaganda. Signs for the park, which is in Melita, Lebanon, refer to it as a tourist landmark. The park, which is featured in a new documentary by Vice magazine's Ryan Duffy, has barbed wire training camps complete with tanks, rockets, and other weapons for visitors to interact with, as well as archival video footage of Hezbollah's attacks against the Jewish state. Visitors are able to walk around replica war scenes that feature destroyed Israeli tanks and other scenes of death and destruction. Duffy says Hezbollah's real motive is to promote what it calls, quote, resistance tourism, and says the park is the latest PR offensive from the Iranian-backed Shia Muslim terrorist group its followers call the Party of God. And that's Shalom TV's news update. I'm Teisha Bader.